or any section, just like one day of your EOC? No, you all were there. All right, cool. So again, make sure your headphones are out. Make sure your phones are completely away, especially if this is the only time we're going to be going over this. So you want to make sure that you're ready. We haven't done exponential in a while. So we're looking at this graph, and they're talking about end behavior. What is the end behavior of that graph? What? 2. You're right. How'd you get that? This line, right? Does anyone remember what that line is called? It starts with A. Not x-axis, that's like the main big folded line down there. Never like rear end, asymptote. Asymptote is where the end behavior is. So right here is my asymptote when y equals 2. So that being said, I know that my end behavior is at the end of my equation. So which 2 can I eliminate that my end behavior on this the equations are not 2? A, because that says 3, and C. So I'm between these 2. Then I need to look at the only thing that's different about them is this. Which right here, this function, is this increasing or decreasing? When I'm going left to right. Decreasing, right? It's decay. I know decay is when my b is smaller than 1. So I know that my b has to be less than $1. Think in the parentheses. So this b has to be decaying also. So which one is decaying, B or D? Looking at this number. Also has to be decaying, has to be less than 1. Which number is less than 1? D. So that means that D is my answer because I have to look at, is it decaying? Is it decaying? And what the end behavior is. Cool. The next one is select 2 functions whose graph has a y-intercept of 1. Which 2 do you think they are? This is all from your homework. You already did these questions. Which 2 do you think have a y-intercept of 1? B, if I put, what's the x coordinate for my y-intercept? What would I plug right here? What's my y-intercept? What's the x coordinate? Always. And I'm looking at my y-intercept. Hey, Tanya. 0. Thank you. So remember, oh, why can I never remember my y-intercept? It's when your x is 0. What could I do with each of these answer choices to figure out which one has a y-intercept of 1? Plug it in. So I could plug it in for x, or I could put them each into table and look at when x is 0. When I do that, I figure out that the 2 are C, because 2 to this, anything to the 0 power is always 1. And E, because when I do that, I get 0.5 times 2 to the 0 power. Anything to the 0 power is what number? Right there. 1. 1 times 0.5 is 0.5 plus another 0.5 equals 1. Those are the only 2. When I plug in 0, and you can even put it right into your calculator, then I would get 1 as my answer. You can also just go on table and scroll, and your x, when your x is 0, those are the only 2 that y is 1. Does that make sense? Cool. All right, did anyone need to go over this one? Okay, so they're looking at, first it says, oh, it has a lot of words, right? Thank you. Is this for right now? Okay, cool. Thank you. so this has a lot of words. So let's underline or highlight the thing that's most important. So it says the student council makes initial investment in a savings account. The value of the savings account after M months is determined by this function right here. They also have a checking account. And the checking account after M months is this equation. So we got a checking account and a savings account. So y'all need to know the difference of which one's which. So the first question is talking about the savings account. Is that the green or the red? So the green, right? Because the green is my savings. So I know I'm looking at this equation right here. B of M equals 2,000, 1.005 GM. It's asking what is the initial investment? Which number there would be my initial investment? What's initial mean? Anyone know? Where on my graph would my initial amount be? We talked about it the last question. Anyone know? All right. Well, it's your y-intercept. Your y-intercept, and you guys got to make sure, like, if you know the answer, speak up, because there's no point in going over it if you're not going to, one, try the questions first, and two, like, pay attention. So your initial amount is your A. It's also, if I were to put that into table, so my x is 0, my y-intercept. So my initial amount here would be $2,000. That's how much they put in. You also can just literally put that into table. It's when your x equals 0. The next part is what is your interest? I know that this part has to do with my interest. And so first I know that my equation in there is 1 plus r, because interest means it's increasing. How much above 1 is 1.005? I can see that it's 0.005 above 1. The 1 just indicates that it's growing. So that means that this right here is the decimal that it's increasing by, but I got to figure out what the percent is. So what I do is I multiply it by 100, or you can do second and the percent sign on your calculator, which is the parentheses. When you do that, you end up getting 0.5%. Any questions on that? Cool. Next one is, they're talking about the checking account. So is that the red or the green equation? The checking account. Am I talking about the red or the green? Checking account. Is it the red or the green? The red, because the red says checking account. So when I'm looking at the checking account, I know I'm looking at the red equation. So they're saying that the money is, they're waiting till they have that much money in order to get the computer. So I know I'm looking at that formula right there for that equation. I know right here that M means months. So that means that this is the cost. And so since this is money, I would plug that in for CFM. Then to solve this, I just draw my river and I solve for M. So how would I get 250 to the other side? Subtract. When you do that, you get 2,200 equals 100 M. Then how do you get M by itself? Divide. When you do that, you get M equals 22. So my answer right here would be 22 months. Any questions on that one? Last one says how much money will be in the student's savings account. So what color is that one? Savings account. Is that the red or the green? The green. So I'm talking about this equation right up there, that 2,000, 1.005 to the x. They're saying how much would be in there after they purchase a new computer. I found right here that in 22 months, they're purchasing the new computers. So what I would do is I'd plug in 22 for n, I'd put it in my calculator, that's all. Or you can put it into table. What do you get when you put that into your calculator? And get the answer. All right, what's the answer? And see where it says explain your reasoning? You're going to have open-ended questions that are worth like 10 multiple choice questions on your milestone. You're going to have probably 3 open-ended. You are going to have to explain the reasoning. So you are going to have to explain that you solved this to get 22 months. And so since you knew it was 22 months, you plugged it in for your other equations n. But you're going to have to explain that in writing because it is a computerized test too, so they can't see your work. So when they say justify or explain, you are going to have to explain it in words. Does that make sense? Cool. What can I do with each of these answer choices? Plug them into the table. Figure out which one gives me that table. And so the page number is always at the top, it's page 26, number 7. Also, make sure to take your formula sheets out because we're going to go over the formulas for exponential real quick too. So make sure to take your formula sheet out also, the blue one. Did anyone get the answer? What is it? Yep. Cool. Get your blue sheets out real quick before we go over the rest of it. So I'm just going to go over these real quick. Right here, exponential. And so we can see that all those answer choices, see how they all look like that with the n minus 1 and the exponent? I know I can look at my formula sheet and see, hey, they're talking about geometric explicit sequences. So you should be able to figure out, okay, all they needed was the A1 and the R. But first, let's go up here. So remember, write this down because you get this formula sheet, but it means nothing if you don't know what they're talking about. So in your exponential equation, what does the A stand for? So in exponential, what is your A? Anyone have a clue? Okay. Your A is your y-intercept. It's also your initial amount. It's when your x is 0. Your B is your growth and decay factor. So B is your growth or decay factor. It's what's being multiplied. And it's what's being multiplied. I know exponential is multiplication because there's an x in exponential. That x tells me, hey, I'm multiplying over and over again. I also know it's exponential because there's an x in the exponent. Exponential, x, exponent. When I'm looking at geometric, I can see that geometric and exponential are next to each other. They're besties because they are the same thing. Geometric sequences are exponential functions. When I'm looking at this, I'm looking at R, and you need to know that R is the same thing as your growth and decay factor. So R is what's being multiplied. So here and here, they mean the same thing. They're what's being multiplied. Your A1 is different from your A right there because A1 means your first term. It's when x equals 1. So instead of x equaling 0, it's when x equals 1. Your n is the number term you're looking for. So if you're looking for the 1000th term, that's where you put that into n. So there are sequences that are on your milestone a lot. Every single year, people come back and say, hey, there's a lot of sequences, a lot of geometric and arithmetic. So my suggestion right now is to write down these notes so that you can look over this. So when you get to geometry and arithmetic, you can realize, hey, they give me the formulas. All I need to know is what those letters mean, and I just plug them in. Does anyone need to copy this still? No? Okay. So when we go back to this, that's all there is for exponential. When we go back to this, we can see it looked like an explicit one, which was this. All I needed to fill in was my A1 and my R. I can see my A1, my first term is 6, which is right there. And on my R, it's multiplying by 3. So that's why that would also be my answer. Remember, you can also use the table if you have a calculator during this question. But remember, it probably takes less time to just realize, hey, I just need to plug in those two values. Cool. Next one, transformations. Which one's 5 to the left? D would be 5 up. Do you guys want to go over transformations? So remember, I just remember little left and right. So if it's little left and right, if it's little minus h is to the right, plus h is to the left. The big constant numbers plus k is always up and down. So this would be, if it's plus k, it's up 5. If it's minus k, it's down 5. Yep, so it would be B. What would A be? 5 what? Good, that would be 5 down. What would this one be? 5 right. And this one? 5 up. So the constants, no matter what, are always up and down. Does that make sense? Cool. All right, find f to the 7. What does that mean I'm doing with that 7? Where am I plugging it in for? F of x or for x? For x, right? See how instead of an x there's a 7? That just means I'm rewriting this and putting 7. That's it. Put it in your calculator and see what you end up getting. So if it's f of 7, that just means you're plugging it in for x. What do you end up getting when you plug that in your calculator? Anyone know? You guys can figure that out. If it's f of x equals 7, that means if it looks like that, then I'm plugging it in for this f of x and solve it. So I would use my answer choices to figure out, okay, which x equals, when I plug it in, equals 7. What's the answer to this one? I do with my equations? If I'm given a table, what automatically can I do? What could I do with those equations? Plug it in for table, right? Or plug it into table, figure out which one gives me that. The one that gives me that is that equation. Cool. Next one. Does anyone need to go over these? Y'all know the domain, range, asymptote, all of that? Okay. Which one's this one? So similar to like our first lecture. B. How do you get there? The 2 is your asymptote for your end behavior. So we know that's at the end of the equation. Cool. Remember that you can also just find the points on here. So I can put X and Y and I can go, okay, I see that this point right here is 3, 6. And I find another point, this one's at 4, 10. And so that way I can plug each of those into the table and figure out which one gives me those 2 points. Cool. All right, so here's the extra credit practice. Remember that all this extra credit, if you want to take a picture of it, all this extra credit, if you are doing it, you need your work shown to show me that you were practicing it and you didn't just copy something's packet. And it is due by Monday. So by the Monday at 2:10 before you leave. So if you want to take a picture of this, awesome. Next class is the last unit we're going over, which is quadratic. A lot of y'all did not do the homework for that. So I highly suggest that if you needed help with exponential, that you practice that, or else you're doing your quadratic homework. So you can grab your computer and do the quizzes. Again, this is the last one we're going over, so I would make sure that you, and this is the most prominent, so this is the one that's mostly on your milestone. So you got to make sure you understand it. Cool. So this is your quadratic one. So you can grab a computer. I'm actually just going to put it, actually, is that the code? So this is the code right here. So I would highly suggest that you try it again. And if you don't get it, like coming and asking